be on the YouTubes. Put this over here. And welcome to the Liberal Dan Radio live stream.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's area code 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. And if you are listening live, you can go with your free blogtalkradio.com account and sign in to blogtalkradio.com. Go to the episode page and join us at the bottom of the page where we have the chat room there. We also have the live chat going on YouTube, youtube.com/liberaldanradio. Come to the live stream and you can leave your comments and questions there as well if you don't feel like calling up on the phone and joining us. If you're listening after the live broadcast, you can always leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. over on the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, or at liberaldanradio on Twitter. Or, again, you can also go to the YouTube video for the live stream and leave your comments, questions, concerns, hate mail, whatever you want to send me. Agree, disagree, want to have my babies, want to come out and, just pick it outside my house for being a horrible person. Whatever it is you want, you can go ahead and just leave your messages on there. Although I hope it's all positive. Anyway, we're not doing a headlines this week. I still catching back up with sleep and rest with everything after the week at Disney World that I had, because it was, Disney World's the one vacation that you need a vacation when you come back from Disney World. Otherwise, you're gonna be feeling it. It's going to be rough. So, anyway, let's go ahead and what are we going to talk about? So, I don't want to talk about the Russia thing yet. I'm probably going to wait for the bottom half of the hour or somewhere close. Let some people come in. Let Demonox get in if he's going to be listening, participating. Hopefully, we'll get our West Coast conservative friends in as well. Just got to stay hydrated. Anyway, so we'll be talking about all this stuff in Russia and perhaps what we should be doing in Russia, what we shouldn't be doing in Russia. I was involved, though, in an interesting conversation involving gas prices when it came to, obviously you're feeling it at the pump. We're all feeling it at the pump. I was driving home from Disney World and I was feeling it at the pump. Believe me, I had to fill up twice on the trip home. I believe it was twice. And yeah, that's rough. It's a rough time when you have to, fill up a van and pulling all of your luggage and everything and your family. And gas is, nearing $4 a gallon. It didn't quite get to $4 a gallon yet when we were on the way home. It was getting there, though. think by the time we got home, gas was still like $3.48 in New Orleans, and now it's almost up to $4. It was like $3.90 something the last time I got gas at Costco, and that's Costco. Costco gas tends to be cheaper than the other gas, but that's because they're only giving it to people who are members, and I'm a member, so there you go. I don't trust any club that would have me. That's sort of popular slogan, I believe. Anyway, so the conversation, and typically, a lot of people are blaming Biden for the gasoline prices. And of course, the typical response when people blame Biden for gasoline prices is the fact that, presidents in and of themselves cannot have any sort of impact on gasoline prices. Like what Biden does cannot actually set a gas price. He can't say gas prices are higher. It's the vast majority of what's going on here is corporate fraud or corporate abuse, corporate greed, all three of them. Just corporations just using this as an opportunity to get extremely even more rich off of the consumers because they have record profits. But one of the reasons they have record profits is maybe, I guess, the exception to the rule. And you're going to say, well, Dan, you can't have the exception to the rule. If presidents can't fix gas prices, presidents can't fix gas prices. Well, sure. President can't dictate what the gasoline prices are going to be typically. But we did have one President, Donald John Trump, who turned out to, he had a negotiation between Putin and OPEC. So Russia and OPEC were having this little price war when it came to gasoline. And he was like, you need to stop with the price war. You need to stabilize gasoline prices, oil prices, so the gasoline prices are stable. Not because oil was getting too high, mind you, because oil was getting too low. Remember when when oil was so cheap that they were actually paying people to take barrels? Oil had a negative price attached to them because they had nowhere to store the oil because we were in the middle of a pandemic. And Trump's like, you need to stop producing oil so my oil buddy friends can't make money. So he basically negotiated with them to artificially stop the production of oil. What happens when you artificially restrict supply? Price goes up. So they're continuing to artificially restrict the supply of oil, means price goes up. If they stopped artificially restricting the supply, price goes down. But here in America, it's not just OPEC, it's not just Russia that's doing it. Here in America, you also have producers, like 80-something wells that are not being used or what have you, or more. I might have even changed that by a factor or whatever, how many wells are not being used, how much they're not drilling because they don't want to drill, because they're seeing epic prices, skyrocketing prices. They love it. They love to see high-priced gasoline. Love to see high-priced oil. It's what they love. It's what they live for. The only reason they would undercut is if it helps their individual profits above and beyond, whatever. But it's a global market. So if you're having artificially restricted oil prices, then you're going to see all across the market. Then the supply is down, and then the prices are going to go up. And then as demand increases because we're coming out of a pandemic and they're easing restrictions and more people are doing more things, guess what happens? Higher price of gasoline. But part of that is because Donald John Trump, the former president, chose to have a little negotiation with OPEC and his good buddy Putin.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. It took you a little while to get you to actually have the audio get out there. But yeah. So blame can go around to wherever, and look, when Biden has done things I disagree with, I have blamed Biden too. Of course, conservatives never want to see that. They only want to ever see the blame that goes on from my side or from me to conservatives. They just completely ignore the fact that I will blame everybody when everybody's at the problem. So there you go. But let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and take the first commercial break. We will come back, take your calls as well. 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dane Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out Budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out Budgeteers.com or go to YouTube.com/Budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. All right, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the Minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Demonox, host of The World According to Knox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDeminox. That's the letter X like X-Men, DEMINOX. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. I'm your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana, to join the conversation. It's your code 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. Shout out to Demonox, who has joined us in the chat room. I don't know if I want to do this on Liberal Dan as a Voltron or on Nerdy Dan, kind of do a Nerdy Dan Voltron with my other project, which is the nerdydan.com website. But I was wanting to try and maybe do something like things in music that we're tired of, or things in music that we don't like. Because I thought of a couple on the road
90
as I was.
Seconds.
Oh, I only set the show to be 15 seconds or 15 minutes again, huh? Let me go ahead and change that real quick so we don't get turned off the air. There we go. I'm not going to have a 3-hour show, but I'm not going to do a 15-minute show either. Sometimes I forget to hit that button. Anyway, but I think it'd be an interesting thing, just, things in music that we don't like. And one of the things that I don't like, I guess I'll give a prequel of my ideas, is when musicians or bands mention their own songs, or maybe even other songs, in their own songs. Like, and there's a couple of exceptions that I'm okay with. But there are some other examples where it's like, you're mentioning your own song, you're referencing your own song in your song. It just bothers me. And it seems it's like reeks of non-creativity. And I mean, sometimes I guess the counter examples where it's okay is fine, where it might fit in the particular song, but other times just when a song mentions itself or mentions another song from their own record or from one of their other records or whatever. I think the worst example might be like Unforgiven 2 from Metallica. That's just not something that Anyway, so hopefully one of these days soon we will get back into forming Voltron again and making sure that we can do it we'll probably do it on Anchor. Who knows? Maybe we'll do it live on here. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I can get it all figured out. Anyway, so shout out to Demonox, to the first Liberal Dan Radio patron. Shout out also to Cesar out in California, and to your boy Chris, who also supports both my show and does he support your show too, Demonox? I don't know. He also supports the Percy podcast. My little brother, the host the most with the smooth moves of the Percy podcast. So hopefully we will all be able to get together soon and get some joint action in, some group action, if you will. Oh my. But anyway, until then, we'll have to do with Demonox in the, see, Amanda Palmer has a lyric, "Don't tell me not to reference my songs within my songs." That's funny. I'll have to hear that because you know what? I'll like that. I'll give that an exception, because that's like kind of like I always make it dirty. If you listen to the first example where we did of episode of Voltron on the Percy podcast, and we were talking about Wall Street bets and short sales and all that other fun, and at the end there I made it super dirty. It was fun. It was, it happens sometimes. Anyway, so shouts out to everybody. And look, if you want to be a Liberal Dan Radio patron, you can go to patreon.liberaldan.com, support the show. If you can't afford to support the show monetarily, at least subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.liberaldan.com, or youtube.com/ or youtube.liberaldan.com, or youtube.com/liberaldanradio. I had a little brain fart right there for a second. Anyway, it's been a long couple weeks. I'm dealing with this knee pain. I'm probably going to the doctor tomorrow. Hopefully we can get something resolved in the short term while I try and lose some weight and get the pressure off the knee. But it didn't happen at Disney. It just happened at that knee. Sorry. I had to bring the site up again because we haven't heard from our West Coast contingent, our conservative fans over there on the left coast. I did have to pull back up that chart that she told me about, because we got up to 10,000 deaths on Christmas, and the COVID deaths got all the way up to almost 20,000 in the week of January 29th, 2022. And of those, 13,000 deaths involved pneumonia, were deaths involving pneumonia, of which 9,000 were COVID-19 and pneumonia. So like about 3,000 deaths were from pneumonia without COVID. The rest of the pneumonia deaths that week were from COVID. So just to tell the people who are trying to say that COVID isn't an issue, COVID, if you don't die of, you might not die of COVID, you might die of something else. Well, it's maybe COVID that's giving you that something else. Like COVID might be giving you the pneumonia, because pneumonia rates have skyrocketed on top of the COVID deaths. Demonox, stop using facts to try and change the fiction. I know I'm terrible like that. And I said I wasn't going to kick this dead horse, but I thought I might have seen it move a little bit, so I had to go ahead and kick it again just to make sure. It was funny because there was another example where I want to say that perhaps it was them who brought this argument up to me. And because I called into the Jeff Carrera show on Friday morning, and I have two things from that call that I'm going to play. The first one being this: he had as a guest Donna Carol Voss, who is a conservative commentator. Normally she's okay. Like, I disagree with her clearly, but normally she had been somebody who I think discussed issues as reasonably as they could for being a conservative. But this one, she just kind of went down into the, not too completely into the gutter, but she was like snide and everything. But what she did was something that I think our left coast contingent, the conservative contingent, have done. So let's go ahead and play the audio real quick, and you'll see, and we'll talk about it afterwards.
In 2018, Georgia, not only did in Georgia Kemp disproportionately purge black voters as Secretary of State while he was running for governor, thousands of reapplications to vote were left unprocessed because his exact match policy, where maybe a person left out a hyphen in their name in their voter application, but the hyphen was in the DMV, it would be rejected despite everything else matching. Georgia criminalized giving bottles of water out to people waiting in lines and made it so that people living in predominantly black precincts have longer lines. And even if elected county officials want to help reduce the line, the state says, well, the legislature can take over and change the decisions of the county election officials.
But one I do know quite a bit about is that SB 202 law that passed in Georgia. No offense to Liberal Dan, but I wonder if he actually read the law, because it does not criminalize people who give water and food to people standing in line. It just prevents political organizations from doing it within 25 feet of the line or within 150 feet of the polling place itself. But, Joe Blow can say to Jane Doe behind him, hey, can you save my place in line? I'm going to get some food and water over there, number one. Number two, there's nothing against having self-service water within those boundaries. And number three, why can't they bring their own bottle of water, for goodness sake? I mean, if you know you're going to be standing in line for hours, don't you bring a snack and some water?
All I know is I've been waiting in line to vote for all my life, and nobody ever gave me any water. I mean, I didn't complain about not getting a water bottle from someone. I mean, you just wait in line and you vote. I mean, I don't think it's racist. I don't think anything to do with race.
And let's tackle that argument first. That argument is that I've waited in line to vote. Well, waiting in line to vote like 20 minutes because it's a busy election day. Because Jeff's all into election day voting. He only wants voting on election day. Like, he'll say that he doesn't, but then he'll say that he does. But Jeff doesn't live in a district where the people in his district are forced to have insanely longer lines than everybody else, like the black voters are in the state of Georgia. And while even if you want to give the most benefit of the doubt to the people and to say that they are not personally like, I hate black people racist, like they're not like marching around like in their Klan hoods or whatever, it's still a racist system if black voters have to wait longer than white voters. I'm sorry, wait, I don't want to steal Mr. Trump's thunder, so let's just here we go.
It is what it is.
It's just not normally regularly available when I'm not planning to just play it immediately. So there you go. So there's that. But, and Demonox, you're wrong on Hypocrite of the Week, although that it was a good one. That is a good suggestion for making it Kim. Anyway, so he doesn't grasp the idea that it is a racist system that has created a longer lines for black voters than white voters. It is also a racist inaction to not try and fix it. But also, so what I'm thinking that because Miss Donna Caravos was insisting that I didn't read the bill. Well, I've read the bill in the show before. I actually emailed Jeff Carrera on this one as well. Let's see. Nor shall any person give, offer to give, or participate in giving of money or gifts, including but not limited to food and or drink to an elector. That's its own separate thing. So you can't give food or drink to an elector, and no person. It's not about political entities. And so, but if you go to the PolitiFact page, it goes, a Georgia law has not criminalized people giving people bottles of water. It pertains to political organizations. That's the what is being researched by the fact checkers on PolitiFact.com. So, and a lot of the conservatives, and I believe that our left coast conservative contingent did bring this to my attention as well, trying to claim that this PolitiFact proved that it was just political entities and not all people. But that's just because they read this line that they were just checking whether or not it was true or not, and taking that as being true, even though right next to it, it says mostly false. There are prohibitions on political organizations from doing certain things, but the law specifically prohibits all people from giving out water. Then, they of course say, well, why can't they bring their own water? Well, why should they have to wait in line? Or why should they have to worry about it? Why can't I walk up to, why is this needed as a law? That's the thing. Why can't they do this? Why can't they do that? Why is this needed as a, why are conservatives arguing for a law that's not needed? Why are conservatives arguing for a law that is not necessary unless your reasoning for having the law is that you want to make it more uncomfortable for the people to vote where people are sitting in longer lines, and the people sitting in longer lines in Georgia just happen to be the people who are black, indigenous, and other persons of color. So, yeah. So I will, on Twitter, I did ask for an apology from Miss Donna Carol-Voss. However, Donna Carol-Voss doesn't seem to be very active on Twitter for the last couple of years. So I am going to call back into the show this Friday, try and get on the air with Miss Donna Carol-Voss and see, if she will in fact give me an apology, because, I think I'm deserving of one. Do I think I'll get one? No. Am I going to hold my breath? No. But I think I'm deserving of one anyway, and I'm going to make that my point. So, B. Second thing. I often like to talk about when I called my shot with Jeff. Called my shot. Let's see if I can get, if I can see that audio. The audio's somewhere here, but it's kind of down. If you don't remember, it was me, I was talking to Jeff, and I was talking about when, here's Calling My Shot, part 1, Calling My Shot, going on. So here's a while back, when Trump was president, me calling my shot on the air. This is a clip from Liberal Dan Radio.
President Trump basically says that for the past 17 years that we've been under the thumb of Obamacare. 17 years, folks. That would make it 2001. Since before 9/11, we've been dealing with Obamacare. Have we now, President Trump? Now, look, people misspeak all the time. I do it. I just want to know, because of this whole 17 years comment, can we finally let go of Obama's statement about 57 states? He didn't even say 57 states. He said 50, then there was a very long pause as if he was saying, yeah, how many states have you been to? And he was like 50, and he probably meant to say 47 states, but it just came out 57 states. And Obama thinks we have 57 states. Well, can we now just shut up about it? Because here we have your idol, Donald Trump, saying, Obamacare's been here 17 years. Well, maybe it feels like 17 years. I guarantee you. Look, I'm going to call into a radio show that's local, the one I often call into, and I'm going to ask them this question about whether or not about 17 years, and can we get rid of this? And I will just guarantee, I'm not willing to bet any money on it, but I'm certain that someone, maybe even the host, will say this. Well, it sure feels like 17 years. The host might not add the little rednecky laugh. But, yeah, I'm anticipating that's going to be the response. It sure felt like it.
And there you go. And I should have bet money. I should have bet money on this, because here it goes.
There are people today who will still bring up, I saw the other day, Barack Obama and his 57 state comments, when obviously it was just a misspeaking. Nobody who's reasonable believes that Barack Obama believes that there were 57 states when he said that, and nobody with a reasonable mind doesn't believes that Donald Trump really meant 17, that he really meant 7.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, because I didn't see where he said that. Was that in a speech recently, or when did he say that Obamacare was in place for 17 years?
It was in a press conference of some sort. There was audio and video of him of him saying that. And, people have, of course, jumped on it because, he's dumb, And, I said, look, he obviously meant 7 and obviously misspoke, just as President Obama obviously misspoke, and there's no reason to, make...
Well, I will agree with you in this.
To discuss.
I will agree with you in saying that Barack Obama is not dumb. I think Barack Obama is a smart guy. I just disagree with him on his positions. And I also would say this, and Liberal Dan, I appreciate the call, and thank you. Great to hear from you. I would say this, Donald Trump's not dumb. And I think both of them are smart. I just agree with Donald Trump's positions more than I agree with Barack Obama's positions. I don't think anybody can be elected president being dumb. I don't think idiots get themselves their party nominations and then get elected to the White House. And in the case of Donald Trump, you don't build a multi-billion-dollar business being an idiot. You don't succeed in the world of television with a reality show for years being an idiot. You don't become a first-time candidate and beat 16 entrenched opponents and then beat a candidate that's got much more money and all the media behind her if you're an idiot. I mean, you're pretty darn smart, if you ask me. So, yeah, I guess he misspoke. I guess he meant to say 7 as opposed to 17. And it probably feels like 17 years of Obamacare. Maybe feels like 70 years of Obamacare. But no, it's 7. All right. Thank you, Liberal Dan. Quick time out. Let's get a news update.
There you go. So that was when I called my shot. And so I just enjoyed the fact that I was able to call my shot with that. But I called my shot again. And it was even quicker this time. Because that time, it was the difference between, me saying it on my podcast on a Wednesday. There was a time where I did it on Thursdays and then shifted back to Wednesdays. So I was doing it on Wednesday. And then the Thursday morning I called up so it took less than maybe 12 hours or so for that to finish up. This took less than 20 minutes because they took my call. They went to their top of the hour break, and then they responded to my call. And here we go.
In North Carolina, they had a so-called voter ID law that contained many provisions not having anything to do with the requirement to show an ID to vote. And I have no problem with an ID requirement to vote, but I'm sure some conservative is going to say, what's wrong with requiring an ID? Because it happens all the time. And the law was tossed because the court found that the GOP legislature targeted black voters with new restrictions with surgical precision.
And then, of course, the issue of North Carolina. So a judge did, as Liberal Dan talked about, struck down the state's photo voter ID law. And I, again, continue to contend that there's nothing racist about a photo ID. Democrats keep making this point that requiring a photo ID is targeting black voters. They're free. The photo ID is needed for so many other things. I do not buy the argument that requiring a photo ID is somehow targeting black voters and somehow being racist. I just think it helps verify the vote.
For some reason, they can't understand. I don't know if he can't understand it or if he just purposely has to just pivot the conversation back into the Democrats hate ID. Because I clearly said, I have no problem with the requirement of a voter ID. Fine, no problem. He says they're free. They're free in Louisiana. The North Carolina law that was tossed would have charged money for the voter ID, which for an ID to vote, which is a poll tax, which should be deemed as unconstitutional. But it's the other provisions in the law. They just have their blinders on. They hear voter ID and it's like, oh, what's wrong with requiring a voter ID? There's nothing wrong with requiring a voter ID. Just ignore every other provision of the bill. Like, when they looked into what they did and into how people vote in the state of North Carolina, and they looked at it by race, and they said, okay, well, black people vote this way, and white people vote this way, so we're going to take the way that black people vote and just yeet it. No more of that. None. Nope. Sorry, can't have that. No, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. It's a bad George H.W. Bush, or more like bad Dana Carvey impression of George H.W. Bush. Way back in the day. Anyway, so just have to do a little patting myself on the back there for being able to call my shot. It's just shooting fish in the barrel sometimes, especially with the whole voter ID thing. Because I have examples of that. If you go to facebook.com/liberaldan, there are many examples where I've taken the screenshots of the people who will say, look, despite the fact that I have said that I have no problem with the voter ID, and it's the other provisions of the bill, the ones not having to do with the requirement to show a voter ID to vote, that I have a problem with, they always come back and say, what's wrong with requiring a voter ID? There was a conversation on my own personal wall that I took screenshots of and posted it to the facebook.com/liberaldan. There was one example where I did it, and 3 conservatives. I haven't told one of these guys who called into radio shows all the time, Anthony on the Cell, who, he's fun, let me tell you. Anyway, I even told him, I was like, I guarantee you that you're gonna do this. I think I told it to him or it was to somebody else, but to one of them, I was like, I guarantee you that you're gonna do it. And he did it anyway, despite the fact that I just told him that he was going to do it, because they have this like Pavlovian response where they hear the terms voter ID, they tune everything else out, and they have to be like, well, what's wrong with the voter ID? I just said that there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's not going to fix anything. The amount of voter fraud that is fixed, or election fraud that is fixed by requiring a voter ID is slim to none. It's infinitesimal. It's nothing. Even if you go to was it Cato, or was it Heritage? I think it's the Heritage Foundation. I think I even cited the Heritage Foundation in my Stop the Coup videos. Or not to Stop the Coup videos, the videos about the GOP coup. The first video said that it did on the GOP coup. I even cited the Heritage Foundation. And like, look, these are all the examples of fraud, and they're not a lot. It's very few, very little amounts of fraud, and some of it is the Republicans doing it. So I'm wondering if it really probably just works itself out in the wash, where you have you have a certain amount of Democrats doing it, certain amount of Republicans doing it. So the overall impact on the elections are probably very small, even smaller when they offset each other. But the idea, there's other things like, not accepting people's voter registrations, like I was talking about when I was talking about the Georgia laws, when I talked about in 2018 when Kemp when he kicked tens of thousands of people off of the voting lists, and then they had an exact match policy which said you have to match it exactly. So if I wrote my name and it wasn't hyphenated in one spot, but it was hyphenated in the other, but everything else was right, they'd be like, nope, sorry, you missed the hyphen, so you can't vote. It's ridiculous. Like, maybe there was a clerical error on one part or the other part. Clerical errors should not prevent people from voting. But they don't care, because what they're going to do is they're going to, and I'm wondering how uniformly that policy was, the exact match policy. I wonder how what happens if like the DMV misspells a name in their registration form or whatever. What happens when that happens? Like, it's not even that person's fault. So they leave out the hyphen, but the hyphen is on their voter registration form and on their birth certificate or what have you, or other legal documents. But because it's wrong at the DMV, they'll be like, nope, sorry, not an exact match. Well, I didn't put it in that way. They put it in that way. Well, too bad. So somebody could purposefully, if they wanted to, type in the name incorrectly and then make it so that they can't vote because they don't have the exact match, because they know that the person is going to want to put their name correctly, whereas the person in the DMV is like, well, let's put it in incorrectly, so therefore it won't exactly match, so that way they won't be able to vote in Georgia. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely freaking ridiculous. But speaking of Hypocrite of the Week,
this week's Hypocrites of the Week are Republicans like Rodney Davis, who decry that we must rein in spending while getting millions of dollars in earmarks for their own districts. Remember, folks, if it's financial assistance for your own district, it's needed economic development. But if it's for someone else's district, well, that's just pork barrel spending. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Central on blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan.
I wonder if my internet connection is not as great. I mean, I haven't seen any dropped frames on my streaming software, but the audio isn't coming in as good. And I heard it before I uploaded it, and it sounded good when I had it. So I'm wondering if my connection isn't the greatest in the world. Haven't even gotten a problem from YouTube. YouTube usually says, hey, you're streaming at a lower rate than you need to be or whatever, and I have no idea how to fix it. I have to look into it some more because what they tell me doesn't seem to match what I actually have streaming. So anyway, it is. Wait, yeah, hold on.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the next commercial break. Come back again and, of course, take your calls if you wish. 914-803-4131, 914-803-4131, or join us in the chat, youtube.com/LiberalDanRadio or blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Greetings. This is Nevis Yosh, host of the Percy Podcast. What is the Percy Podcast? Well, it's pretty much the smoothest talking host you'll ever hear in your life, talking about all kinds of things. Political things, nerdy things, fun things, not so fun things. Go ahead, give a listen, and follow at the Percy Podcast for more updates and information. Why not sit back and take a listen to one of the best podcasts you'll ever hear, and no one else will. Catch you on the tunes.
Do you want to set money aside for a rainy day? Do you want to open an account that will give you a savings bonus each month? What if I told you that you can get both and have a chance to win $10 million? YADA is an FDIC-insured bank, and when you go to yada.liberaldan.com, open an account, and make your first deposit, you will get 100 entries into the next weekly drawing. You will also get entries each week you have a balance. So go to yada.liberaldan.com. That's YOTTA.liberaldan.com. Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left. That's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, 914-803-4131. Join the blogtalkradio.com chat room or the Liberal Dan Radio YouTube chat room as well on the live stream chat at the moment, or you can leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. on the YouTube page or the YouTube video when it's over and posted, or you can leave your questions, comments, etc. on liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, or at liberaldanradio on Twitter. So, haven't gone over to Gab or to your spot yet. Wondering if I should just go to your spot just as a goof. Like, do I go in over as conservative Dan and be like, you know, try and act all conservative and infiltrate the Your Spot website, or do I go in as Liberal Dan and see how much hate I get for their so-called community site? See if they treat me as one of the community, or if they're like, oh, here's a liberal, getting him off of here. We'll see. Who knows about that one. I do have a Words of Redneck Wisdom this week. I did do some show prep, so you should be very proud of me. You know, on this, not only is it, this week we've had, was it Pi Day on the Ides of March? Well, today is Stone Cold Steve Austin Day because it's 3/16. And Stone Cold Steve Austin 3/16 just said, "I just whooped your ass." Anyway, big loss in the wrestling community. Scott Hall, known as Razor Ramon, passed away yesterday. My cousin Bill is very, he got along with him very well, and you could tell that he was very sad at the loss of Scott Hall. So shout out to my cousin Bill Apter. BillApter.com will get you to his YouTube channel if you are into the wrestling stuffs. And I have a couple of videos on there as well, part of my Think Outside the Ring stuff that I need to make some more content for, especially with WrestleMania coming up. So I'll be doing that soon as well. So if you want to see me more, is nerdydan.com. Is most of my stuff. You can there. I'm nerdydan DOTCOM on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. But also I have some videos that are posted up on BillApter.com as well. So a little plug for my cousin. Love you, cuz. Hope you're doing well with that. But here is anyway. Let's get back to the show. This week's Words of Redneck Wisdom.
And now, Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
Well, we scuttlebutt out of Arizona is cavalry's on the way, and things are going to happen in the next 2 weeks. So let's keep our fingers crossed and prayers, and
What's going to happen, Bill? I mean, I've heard that before. What's going to happen?
I can't say that on the air.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can hope and pray, but I'd be surprised. But let's see. Maybe. You're talking about the election? You're talking about election bombshell?
Oh, yeah. That's part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
I hope and pray you're right.
Cavalry's on the way.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
So that was from yesterday's Ringside Politics show on 3/15. And so 2 weeks from there, so apparently by March 29th or somewhere around that way, something will be coming from Arizona, and the cavalry will be coming. And he can't talk about it on the radio, which to me seems to suggest that maybe he's suggesting that there's going to be more violence from the people who, embrace Putin and love what Putin is doing and support Putin more than they support the United States of America. Basically, the part of the treason caucus, the insurrection caucus, the people who can suck my caucus. Yeah, that's something like that. Whatever. No, so there was a very interesting thing. The reason I called the show Two Words is because of the fact that there was some video that was taken of somebody who was, I think it was right outside the Kremlin, and the woman just was like, she held up a sign, and all the sign said was 2 words, and it was in Russian, and not just Russian, like two, they didn't say like free Ukraine, like 2 words in Russian. It said literally 2 words in Russian, like the Russian word for two and the Russian word for words that's all it said. And she came up and she was like, can I just say this? And she was like, am I going to be arrested? Well, they're arresting you now. And the big swarm of big, mad, angry Russian men came and swarmed up and took her away. Then somebody came up, was even talking in support of Putin, and they just swooped her up and took her away. So, yeah, that's the, that's why I called it 2 words, because like I just don't like there's a whole bunch of things like I really got this one Neil, one guy who I was interacting with a bunch during the Rittenhouse trial, who didn't agree with me on some of the things pertaining to, he claimed to be a Bernie supporter, but he was very much pro Kyle Rittenhouse, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, so I posted on Twitter, I was like, is there any way that, World War III, clearly, one of the reasons we're not taking actions like no-fly zone over Ukraine is because we're concerned that we don't want to escalate it to the point where it becomes World War III, where Russia then decides to attack NATO. And if Russia attacks NATO, then we're required by treaty to go and defend NATO, making it, yes, the leftist who was pro-guns and anti-protest, yeah. But not the one that called in whose friend, his name is Jay Danielson, who got arrested or something, and who was also facing charges. Not him, but the different guy, Neil, I think Kiernan was his name. If you go and look on my Twitter account, you'll see his response, because I basically said, well, if we're not going to take any actions in Ukraine that are overt, maybe the covert ops can do something to end this problem. And he was like, are you publicly endorsing assassination? I was like, no, I'm publicly endorsing covert ops taking actions that would prevent this. He was like, so assassinations? And I was like, well, I mean, that's what you're saying. You're saying assassinations. I'm not saying assassinations. You were the one saying assassinations. I'm just saying covert ops. But now that you've said assassinations, I'm like, would you be upset if that happened to Putin and there was no response? Because these people who are, I mean, like, I think they really just, they were swooning over Putin in the horse. They were repeating, you know, on Jeff's show, you had an example of somebody who was promoting the Russian propaganda that the attack on the hospital was not really from Russia, but was a false flag attack. You have other people, Fox News hosts like Tucker Carlson or whatever, promoting the agenda of Putin and the propaganda that what Putin is doing is right and just, or to the point where, and I hate to keep bringing up Jeff's show, there's a guy who calls up into Jeff's show, and he's from like the Center for Security or whatever, and he always calls up every Friday, and he always is there to talk about what's going on with world events. And even he, this staunch diehard conservative, is like, I can't believe that Tucker Carlson was promoting Russian propaganda on his show. It's a shame that Tucker Carlson was promoting Russian propaganda on the show. So, I mean, at least you have that disagreement. But you have a lot of people who are like making excuses, like all the people with like, well, what about the whole thing of the United States might have had some testing facilities to, in Ukraine, with having to do with infectious diseases, and maybe they did. And there's a whole discussion to be had about that too, because let's think about it. Ukraine was a very cheap nation to live in. Ukraine may have been a very educated nation. I think it's one of the most top educated nations in, and I think maybe in Europe, I want to say. But here's the thing with Ukraine, is that it was very poor. And what happens in poor areas? What happens to the poor people? They they get marginalized. People put things in their neighborhoods, like in New Orleans, people put power plants in New Orleans East, where the high proportion of black residents, as compared to the rest of the city, because they don't have the say to fight the fact that they're now putting a energy plant in their city. Like the environmental impact on, I was having a conversation with somebody else on Facebook, and they were bemoaning the fact that Biden's energy policy includes things like environmental justice. And he was like, well, why would you even, you're bringing in these things that have nothing to do with it? I'm like, of course they have everything to do with it. Because if you don't have environmental justice, you have marginalized communities that will get bowled over by big energy, because they can more easily get into these areas and, buy them up, or buy the influence to get them to be able to build their energy plants in poor and minority neighborhoods and not have to put them in the middle of the rich area. It's like one of the solutions to our energy crisis or whatever, or if we want to reduce the amount that we rely on foreign energy, one of the best things we could potentially do, and some people disagree with nuclear, but we have nuclear. But people will say, let's have nuclear, but not in my congressional district, going back to the hypocrite of the week, where if it's in my district, if it's spending in my district, it's economic development. But if it's spending in somebody else's district, that's a problem. Except for things like nuclear power plants and oil refineries. You want to build a nuclear power plant, you're not going to do it because no congressman is going to want to have it done, and because they're going to say, well, they're not going to elect me if you put this nuclear plant right here, because no one wants the nuclear power plant in their own backyard. Now, do I want to look at a nuclear power plant every day? No, but does that make me a hypocrite? Not necessarily. Maybe it should be put somewhere where it's safe, but sometimes you gotta. If it happened to be in my neighborhood, if off in the distance I had to see a nuclear power plant because that was the best place for it to be, maybe fine. Whatever. I'm not going to like it, but, it is what it is. Sorry, I took Donald Trump's line, and I'm not going to go look for it. But the same thing with oil refineries. You can only drill so much. There's only a certain amount of capacity that our refineries can take. If you drill more than what we can refine, then it doesn't affect the price of gasoline because you're not refining it. You're drilling too much. And also, people, well, the Keystone Pipeline would have been finished, would have been allowed to build, then that would have, no, it wouldn't have. Stop it. You're wrong. It would have just changed the route of an existing pipeline for most of it. And then when it was finally finished, it would have gotten it down to like Laredo, Texas, or Galveston, Texas, or whatever, for it to be refined and then shipped away, and i.e. not here. It wouldn't have affected it might have affected global markets, but it wouldn't have been gasoline that would have been used by Americans. So it's not going to help the American supply of oil or the American supply of gas at all. But they don't want to understand that. The facts get in their way. So, I don't know. But going back to the whole Ukraine thing, and Ukraine being invaded, and so what do we do? I think Biden is in a tough spot because if I'm sure Biden would love to be able to put a no-fly zone over Ukraine. I'm sure Biden would love to be able to give as much help as possible to stop the death that Putin is causing. But I guess the formula, sorry for my stutter, the formula that Biden has to figure out is, how much death do I prevent? Am I preventing with this action? Plug in an action. Does it increase or decrease death? Maybe the whatchamacallit, the sanctions on the Russian oligarchs, the sanctions on Russia, the ban of the importation of Russian oil into our country. Might it hurt some people? Maybe. Does it squeeze Russia a little bit to try and get them to stop doing things? Maybe. But Russia has still continued to attack with them. But if the American, let's just take a worst case example. Americans decide, okay, well, we're going to fly over Afghanistan, over Ukrainian airspace, and we're going to protect people. We're going to stop, make it a no-fly zone so nobody can fly over this land. And Putin's like, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to go bomb Poland. I'm going to start bombing other places now too, or I'm going to drop a nuke somewhere. Well, how many people has that action saved? Because you might have some Ukrainian lives might have been saved by the no-fly zone, but then other people die because Putin drops a bomb somewhere else. And yes, I know the problem is that sanctions starve the poor before it starves the oligarchs. And one thing that they've done is trying to take the access to, I think some of the sanctions though are like taking away the access to money from the oligarchs, trying to take away the ability for them to to use the international banking systems, trying to seize their assets in order to squeeze the oligarchs specifically. Yes, unfortunately, it does hurts the poor people of Russia before it hurts the oligarchs. I'm sure the oligarchs are going to be able to last longer, have access to supplies, and that's again, that's the calculus that Biden needs to figure out. Are these sanctions going to save more lives than they hurt? Is a military action going to save more lives than it hurts? A lot of the justification that people will still give you today in World War II for the ending of World War II, and the justification to dropping the bomb on Nagasaki, to the two bombs on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki is that people will argue that, yes, these bombs may have killed a bunch of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but they prevented deaths because they pulled Japan out the war. Now, on the other side of the coin, the other side of the argument is that Russia was done with Germany, and had a whole bunch of troops that were coming and was about ready to invade Japan, and they were about ready to kick Japan's butt, to the point where Japan may very well have had to surrender to Russia because of the force that Russia was going to put, the pressure that Russia was going to put with their military might on Japan's doorstep. However, if Russia does that, then Russia gains power on the national stage. Whereas if America magically now drops these 2 bombs that no one's ever seen before, no one's ever seen used in combat before, America now gets to flex its muscles and say, hey, we're tough, we're America, we're strong, we have nukes, you don't. Or we have atomic weaponry, you don't. So that's why ultimately Truman decided to do what he did. So it wasn't to save lives at all. It was just because if you wanted to really save lives, you would have just said, let's line all those Russian troops on the border and be like, you really want to continue this? Yeah, go get them. Or you even threaten it. You say, maybe you drop a bomb somewhere else and say, look, this is what we can do. We're going to drop 2 on you unless you give up, and maybe make it so that you don't hurt as many people. But no, they bombed 2 cities. So I don't think you were necessarily saving more lives. I think it's been shown that the lie that dropping those bombs saved more lives than not dropping the bombs, that is a lie. That is not a truthful statement. So, and that's as Zelensky said today. He was like, Biden, you're the leader of the free world, so you should be the leader of peace. And I think he's trying to do that. I just think it's a very tough situation when you're dealing with somebody on the other side of the map, if you will, that is unhinged, that is unwilling to listen to any sort of reason, that telegraphed the reasons for doing this. And even I think there was even a leaked article that basically said, we won in Ukraine and here's why, because it was timed to be released on a certain date and they didn't change the timer. So they said, hey, we won, and they didn't really win. It was just a badly timed article placement. And guess what? So it basically showed many of the arguments that have been made by the conservative supporters of Putin in Russia and by the Russians and Putin in general, that their whole excuses that they gave were lies. Nobody expected anything different. If you had an ounce of sense in your head, you knew that Putin was lying. I mean, I was mocking it at the beginning when they lined troops on the border. It's like, we're just here for a picnic. It's just a picnic. Well, no harm. No harm comes from a picnic. We toss ball, we play catch, we eat some borscht. It's all good. We're not here to hurt anyone. Then, we're a peacekeeping force. Yes, peacekeeping. We take a piece of Ukraine and we keep it. It's peacekeeping. So, yeah. So I think he's in a tough spot. I think Biden's in a tough spot. And clearly, Ukrainians shouldn't be made to suffer because of a tough spot. But what do? It's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you make the wrong decision, it's not even a political decision at this point. I don't think it's a decision of how many lives are saved versus how many lives are not saved. You make the wrong action, more lives are lost, and then you're going to feel that was on your hands, despite the fact that Putin is the aggressor. You're still going people with compassion are still going to feel summers. Like if I was president and I was trying to defend Ukrainians from Putin, and I made the wrong decision, and more people died than would have had I made another decision, even though Putin is the aggressor, I'd still feel guilt over it. Now, if Donald Trump was still president, Donald Trump's feigning machismo all over the news, like, why are we talking about how many nukes Russia has? We should talk about how many nukes we have, because I rebuilt the American nuclear arsenal. We have the most nukes. We're the most powerful. We should say that we don't want to bomb anybody else. Yeah, because you want that unhinged lunatic dealing with the unhinged lunatic in charge of Russia. That would be good. Especially when the unhinged lunatic we have here would just bend over backwards or forwards for Putin and be more than willing to just, capitulate. And he probably be like, just let them take Ukraine. Let's let them, we'll be appeasement. I'll be the Neville Chamberlain. That's the crazy thing, is that, you have people who often, bemoan Neville Chamberlain's policy of appeasement before, World War II and dealing with the Nazis, and that was failed, and conservatives will fail that. But that's what Trump was doing with Putin the entire time. It was appeasing the madman, appeasing Putin, because he wants to be Putin. Trump wants to be Putin. First thing he comes when he comes to DC is he says, I want a military parade in my honor. In my honor, not to honor the troops. I want it to in my honor. I want it for me. It's for me. I'm the best president. March down the road and show me all of the might that we have. He probably would have wanted to have trucks with nukes going down the street. Look at me. I'm Donald Trump. I'm using this to compensate for my little wiener. And then, he made it so that, he negotiated a deal to increase oil prices, and he worked with Putin and OPEC to do that, as I said earlier in the show. He did things like, weakening NATO. He weakened NATO. Some people are saying on the news today that NATO is now stronger than even when Obama was president. He weakened NATO. By weakening NATO, he emboldened Putin. He, in the whole case with Syria, he basically ceded the power of Syria and what was going on over there to Putin. He gave Putin more power in the Middle East. He ceded power. Putin, people have asked, Republicans have said before, why did Putin not attack during, I think he attacked Crimea when Obama was president, and he attacked Ukraine now. So Putin only attacks when Democrats are president. And that's their argument, is that's why Trump is good to them, because Putin didn't attack. But they don't understand the point. They don't understand what's going on. Putin doesn't have to attack. He doesn't have to risk any harm internationally by making a military action. He doesn't have to put his troops at risk. And not that he cares about his troops, but he doesn't have to put them at risk. He could just have them sit back and relax, because Trump is going to just appease him and do anything he wants to do. He bends over forwards for him, and backwards, and sideways, and anywhere else. Whatever position Vladimir Putin wants Donald Trump in, Donald Trump will get in there. If Putin says, I want reverse downward dog. No, Putin says that. I would like you to get in downward dog. I like the doggy style position. And yes, anything you say, I love you, Vlad. You're the best Vlad ever. You're much better than Vladimir Zelensky. He's nothing. You could take him one-on-one. Mano y mano. That's why Putin never had to fire a single shot during the Trump presidency, because Trump was too busy giving him power in Europe and giving him power, over Ukraine, and giving him power all over the world, and giving him more money, but by allowing them to artificially reduce the price of oil. Putin loved Trump as president. Now, Trump had to say the things. He had to say certain things so that enough people in the American public say, see, he's strong on Russia, while giving Russia all the power in the world. But he's also convinced these same people who are like, say he's strong on Russia, will be like, he's strong on Russia, but what Russia's doing, I have no problem with it. Because they just love to fall for propaganda. Anyway, I think that's going to be the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left. That's right. I will be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. blogtalkradio.com/ oh, wait, hold up, wait. I'm not ending the show, because in the chat room on blogtalkradio.com is Bringing It Boy. I was worried about you, Bringing It Boy. I was wondering if everything was okay health-wise with you and your wife. Are you and everybody okay? Just want to see that you're okay. If you have anything else to add to the conversation. Were y'all on a trip or something, or were y'all on He's on the Blog Talk Radio chat, not the YouTube chat, Demonox. What's going on, Bringing Boy? Again, were you all on a trip? Were there any health issues? What was going on? We haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, and I was starting to get worried about my favorite conservatives out on the left coast. What's going on? I'm not seeing any response. Just a big D. Yes, I am Big D. Yes. Call me Big D. Just waiting for the response. I want to see if you have anything to add. Otherwise, I will end the show. Because I was going to end soon. And now, because it's getting a little hot in my room. Let's see. Thanks for asking. All right. Was anything wrong? Or y'all okay? Y'all healthy? Happy? Did any of you get the Rona? Did you take a trip, a cruise, fly around the world? Did you go fight on the side of Zelensky on Ukraine and came back? What happened? Are y'all good? I don't know. Because normally you're in the show. Oh, is she okay? Apparently, Bringing Boy's wife was in an accident. Is she doing okay, Bringing Boy? Oh. Lost the use of her legs. I'm very sorry to hear that. They just brought Liberal Dan Radio to a depressing, well, definitely, thinking of her. I hope that, is it permanent or it's been day by day? I'm really sorry to hear that. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody. Clearly, even if I disagree with you, I disagree with Jeff on Jeff shows all the time. I don't want bad things to happen to him. I want him to be happy and healthy. I just disagree with Jeff on how things can be happy or healthy. Are y'all okay? Is there anything that we at Liberal Dan Radio can do to help out other than sending our good thoughts? Does she have access to her email? Can I shoot her an email and get some more info? There's going to be a little bit of silence here, I guess, while we're waiting to hear on her situation. When did the accident take place? I don't understand what the last thing says. Bringing a boy, I'm sorry. It says, always look for the talk. Yes. How recently was it? Second week of January. Oh, that explains it, because I haven't seen y'all in a while. But that definitely explains why I haven't heard from y'all. And I was starting to get, I said, past couple of weeks, I was like, did something happen? Either I said something that pissed them off so much that they just gave up on me, or something happened that, it's just one of y'all's health that, made it so that y'all couldn't call in, be it COVID or whatever. And that, frankly, if I had to choose between two, I would choose the I pissed you off and y'all decided to leave me because I pissed y'all off, because at least then one of y'all wouldn't have been harmed. But I'm not gonna just spend all this. I'll shoot her an email. I have her email address. I will shoot her an email and see what's going on. We wouldn't let you get off that easy. Yes, okay, I know. But I would hope that it would have been me pissing you off and you taking a break from me instead of that. I would have much rather that. I don't want to piss y'all off, but I would rather piss y'all off and then have y'all be in an accident. So anyway, I'll continue this on, I guess. in emails. I'll shoot her off an email and see what's going on, and see if there's anything that we can do here at Libertarian Radio to help. So, but thank you very much for checking in, bringing a boy. I'm sorry it has to be under such circumstances, but give her our love over here from Liberal Dan Radio, and from me personally, and from the other people who listen as well, even if they're not talking about it. But you're very welcome. Okay, and this is the so on a more somber note, this is the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. I will be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. I'm not sure if next Wednesday or the Wednesday afterward is the show with Hal Sparks. Just follow my Twitter, at Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter. I'm sure it will be announced there. And follow me everywhere else. Follow me here, go to the Patreon, follow Demonox, ex-Demonox on Twitter, at the Percy Podcast, etc. Until next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.